What's up, everybody? Welcome to week two of what is today the whole story. New name for the show. A lot of people voted on Instagram. Whole story was probably the most popular, but I got a lot of other good ones that I'm not forgetting. But right now, the whole story is the name of the show, and today's show, I think this picture pretty much sums it up. If you are a Ferrari fan, um, what a race! If you're a Ferrari fan, you don't have the good old saying, if there was only luck you have is no luck, basically. If it wasn't for bad luck, you'd have none at all. Is if you're a Ferrari fan, that's what you're thinking this year. And this kid represents this pretty well. All right. As you guys know, biased Mercedes fan, but I do respect the history that is Ferrari. And this is bad year. Obviously, we'll get into it in our show today as we review the French Grand Prix. But this needed to be shown. This is basically the overall theme. And if this kid doesn't wrap up the emotion from Sunday, we got this gentleman here, his boy laughing at him. Nice little video here. Hat takes a triple hit to the post. Everyone around him and all. And my guy in the Mercedes over here laughing. So that was basically Ferrari's weekend in a nutshell. So we talk about the race this weekend. It was pretty good in my opinion. I don't want to say like great. I know you got to be into racing to really appreciate kind of the race that was this weekend. But Paul Ricard, track in France, probably the most colorful track. So if you don't know a lot about racing, especially this circuit, what's pretty interesting about this circuit, there's blue and red all around the track. So it makes it the most colorful. But those colors are not just paint that's there for no reason at all. They're actually asphalt and a material called tungsten put together. So instead of a normal gravel trap, so if you run wide, you're in the gravel trap, it slows you down so you don't hit the wall at these crazy speeds that these guys are going. The blue is actually the asphalt and that tungsten, which makes it a very, very rough, like heavy sandpaper like material to slow down the car. And I believe blue is first. All right, so it's less abrasive, and that's, and if you just miss a little bit, and then if you go out even more, red all around the track is the red, which makes it more abrasive. So it might seem silly, like the colors are there for nothing or just like decoration. If you look at it, there's like 12 different track layouts involved, so it's very confusing. But the colors, they do have a purpose, as I am pulling this up right now for you guys. So you guys can see multiple colors, many different layouts. They come down this straightaway right here. This is the long DRS zone. A lot of passing into this tight chicane, which we saw a few good incidents at. Luckily, no one too badly damaged. I think all the contact, honestly, all the cars were able to go on. No fully junked race cars. But yes, as you see, colors everywhere. So this blue, slightly abrasive to slow down the car. Red, very abrasive to slow down the car and get those stopped, which is good because honestly, sometimes the gravel trap, cars can still kind of go through it and hit a wall. Here, such wide runoff area. I think you saw it in practice if you watched some of the practices. I know Mick Schumacher lost the rear end, I believe, in one of them. Went pretty far off, but because it's so wide and that abrasiveness slowing it down, all you ruin is tires. And then sometimes what the gravel can kicked up at the horsepower that these guys have in their motor and how fast they're going can damage the car too. So it's a pretty unique circuit that it has just kind of that runoff area. Unfortunately, it doesn't have enough runoff area if you're Charles Leclerc, but we'll get to that. Couple highlights before we get into this week. And I feel like I only have Mercedes stats because I'm a big fan. So if you got stats from your team or comments, questions, let me know. But going into the week, if you live under a rock, maybe, George Russell, he's the type of guy to basically finish top 5 in all of his races except Silverstone. So George Russell is the type of guy who was the big joke. George Russell is the type of guy to clap when the plane lands. George Russell's the type of guy to take off his shirt going through TSA, Alex Albon was saying. So a whole bunch of George Russell jokes. George Russell's the type of guy jokes that were funny. He even got in on it a little bit. Also, I know the internet thinks the joke is dead when other teams started commenting on it, so it kind of ended fast. But that was one of our funny jokes going into the weekend. Also, big news for Lewis Hamilton, 300th Grand Prix, which is a lot. It is significant. It's funny. It's significant because if this was last year, if he, car wise, if he had last year's car and he was in his 300th race, there's a stat that no one has won a race after their 300th start. And we have names on this list that aren't bums. Rubens Barrichello, Michael Schumacher, we have Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Räikkönen. So those are not scrubs. Most of them, if not all, former world champions. So the big thing is can Lewis win a 300 race or win a race after his 300 start? Which, like, if this was last year with that car, you'd be like, yeah, of course he would have to win at least one, if not more. Especially with how strong that car looked at the end of the year. This year, Mercedes is clawing their way to the top as far as cars wise, speed, but they are still behind Red Bull and Ferrari. So it's kind of one of those things. You're like, I don't know if that 300 win is going to come this year, maybe next year. But that was kind of one of the big things. Lewis Hamilton's 300 start. Did a little bit of digging because I couldn't believe that Sebastian Vettel is not on this list. Lewis Hamilton started in 2007. And I believe that Sebastian Vettel started halfway through 2007. And then 2008 was his first full year with AlphaTauri. So he is at 290 races, I believe, is what the internet said. So he has 10 more races till he hits 300. And I feel like he kind of falls into that situation that kind of Kimi was in with Alfa Romeo. Like, we love Kimi, fan favorite. You didn't really see him winning a race in that car after 300. The way Aston Martin looks right now, that car doesn't have enough pace to win a race, just kind of on merit. So you're kind of feeling a little bad for Sebastian. Fan favorite though, obviously. So if he could get that done after 300, that'd be cool. But those are some of the big headlines going into this weekend. Paul Ricard, no sprint race this week. So last week, the first show, we talked Austria. They had a sprint race. Makes it like a whole different weekend almost because you had that mini race. Actually heard some good opinions on the sprint race. You do qualifying. You guys go out for a lap, maybe two, tops. They have to come in, change tires, get to the right fuel level. They are very, very particular about how much fuel is in the car for weight purposes, for lap times. So the sprint race kind of gives them 15 laps to see how their tires, degradation is going to be, to kind of see how they're performing. So some people were saying that they didn't like that because it kind of gives a precursor to Sunday. Whereas when you're qualifying and then you don't have a sprint race, you just have a race on Sunday, you have no chance to like see what your car is like kind of in a good run in dirty air. You have practice and they do multiple practice laps to see their race pace, or like a race run, they call it. But a lot of times it's practice, so they're not following closely, and they're not doing some of the things that you do during the race. So sprint race gives kind of teams an opportunity to see where their car is. But the qualifying straight to a race does not. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. I enjoy the sprint race because it gives qualifying on Friday, sprint race on Saturday, and a race on Sunday. I can't get enough of this, so more racing is the absolute better. But qualifying was interesting this week. Going into qualifying, Kevin Magnussen from Haas and Carlos Sainz, they're going to be starting from the back of the grid, taking too many components for their engines. Teams are only allowed certain amount of different parts for their engines. Engine probably has 6 or 7 parts classified in Formula One. You're only allowed 2, 3 for certain ones. And with Carlos Sainz catching on fire last week and basically blowing that thing to shreds, he needed a 4th part for most of his engine, if not the whole thing. And Kevin Magnussen, some engine troubles last week as well, needed new parts. So going into qualifying, you knew that they were going to be starting from the back. which is interesting because if you watch qualifying, two of the fastest drivers, Carlos Sainz and then Magnussen, was not one of the fastest, but he was able to put his car into Q3, which is interesting because they do this. It's people might ask, why would they even qualify if they're starting in the back? One, they put other people on the back foot. Kevin Magnussen, beautiful qualifying session to put the Haas into the top three. Didn't take any laps once he was in Q3 because that was kind of all said and done. But if you watch qualifying, which was pretty good, Ferrari strategy, blunders everywhere, blemishes on their record. But one thing they did good is Carlos Sainz is going to start from the rear, but he's in Q3. So why run him? One, get a little bit of data for the car. And two, if you watched, Carlos Sainz gave Charles Leclerc, I believe 2 times, a tow after this chicane corner that I showed you. And then Charles Leclerc ends up qualifying fastest. So, when I'm trying to turn people on to Formula One, to what's so exciting, especially if you're a person who doesn't, cars go around in circles, they're not that close. If maybe you're used to stock car racing, there's just so many games being played over the course of a weekend, and it's amazing. So Carlos Sainz puts in a great lap all by himself, actually, which was pretty disgusting. And then he gives Charles Leclerc a tow so that Charles will start first in the race. It was absolutely beautiful to watch. It didn't look like it was actually getting orchestrated properly. It almost looked like they were messing it up, but I think the time speaks for itself. Charles Leclerc, almost 3/10 faster than Max Verstappen. So the tow worked. Going into the race, though, we'll talk about the qualifying kind of results here. See on the screen. Leclerc first with a 138.2. Verstappen 131.1. 310. Sergio Perez 131.3. And then you have Mercedes 131.7. Lando Norris in the McLaren rounds it out 132.0. One of the big storylines going into the week was Mercedes was supposed to be kind of fast. They were picking up momentum at Silverstone on a flat track that wasn't a street course. From my feed anyways, and not just Mercedes, I love Mercedes.com blogs, but actual blogs were saying that they thought Mercedes would be a legit contender. And I think you saw good race pace, as we'll talk about, but their qualifying car, it is nowhere where it needs to be, nowhere close. I think you see, you maybe saw Ferrari in the beginning of the year, fast qualifying, Red Bull would beat them in the race. Same thing, Mercedes, qualifying 5th, 6th consistently, if not 6th, 7th, as you see George Russell 6th this week, Lando Norris in between. But the race on Sunday, as we'll talk about, they have a lot more race pace in their car. But you can't start on the back foot every single week and expect to win at least constructor championships, if not driver championships, because you're on the back foot every single week. Going through this, though, Lando Norris 5th, Russell 6th, Fernando absolutely killing it this year 7th. Yuki puts it in 8th, which was a great run. And then you have 9th and 10th, which didn't register lap times, really, because they were with their engine penalties. So that was the top 10 for qualifying. It was pretty good. The kind of the big stories, upgrades going into the week, McLaren and Alpine were the two big teams taking in upgrades. As I've talked about, McLaren's on a roller coaster of a ride this year. I believe they missed some preseason testing in Bahrain, and that's why the result was 18th and 19th, I think, or something atrocious. And so they're starting to show a little bit of speed. And then Fernando is just absolutely someone that you have to watch out for, as we'll discuss more. But McLaren, and then AlphaTauri brings the big upgrades. Yuki Tsunoda, not Yuki's, I'm sorry, Pierre Gasly's home race, trying to score some points. He was feeling confident, new upgrades. Yuki puts it in 8th. He's down all the way 16th. Lets fellow Frenchman Esteban Ocon beat him out in 12th. Poor Pierre, just going through it. Qualifying did not help at all for him. And the big upgrades, I felt like they were a little bit better for McLaren than they were for AlphaTauri. And then Mercedes was just running a little bit of two different wings setups between Russell and Hamilton, trying to, I believe Russell, I think it was just the front wing with a little bit different you could do some end plate adjustments. His was a little bit more trying to get top speed down the straightaway, and Hamilton's wing was set for a little bit more downforce for corner car control. But I don't have the data on here, but I remember they were saying in, I believe if it was qualifying or not, final practice 3, but Mercedes in the speed trap, which is where they measure kind of like top speed before the corner, was at like 318, and Red Bull was at 331. That's kilometers per hour. But that's just, the deficit is crazy. If you watch the post-race interview, poor Hamilton sounds absolutely defeated that he just had no straight line speed. Which, if you watch the race, you could see he was doing pretty good on the corners, and then Perez was kind of just mowing him down in the race, which we will talk about. So, lights out, away we go. Kevin Magnussen, amazing start. Lance Stroll's a good start. And Lewis Hamilton starts 4th, jumps Sergio Perez after the first lap, top 3, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, and then you have Perez. As the race goes on, I think the first couple laps, myself included, Sergio's going to blow past Hamilton, especially once the DRS is open. Hamilton kept him at bay, kept him back, and then eventually opened up even a 1-second gap over him and really kind of maintained a strong pace over Sergio. That was kind of absolutely 100% on speed. Was he faster? No nonsense. No, Perez got caught up with a little bit of damage that was affecting the car. No crazy, no pit stop blunders at this point that we'll discuss. Just straight up speed for speed. Perez didn't seem to have the car that Verstappen did, and Lewis stayed ahead of him the whole race. Sergio Perez, beginning of the year, especially Monaco, I think we'll say is like the peak with that race win, was looking like he could challenge Max for this championship easy. Past couple of weeks, Silverstone kind of, get into an accident, have to come in the pits, works his way up, great finish. But then, but that was a race that if he could have kept that car up front, could have won. It's not exactly his fault. Austria, we get into an incident with George Russell, has to retire the car. And then you have this week where it just, you get through the first lap clean. Let's see what your car has. Your teammate's up the road crushing it. And he kind of wasn't there. So I'd like to see Sergio Perez get back to that early season form, because I thought he was absolutely destroying it. It's going to always be tough racing next to Max Verstappen. I think you'll always be the number 2 driver. But I think that form, especially Monaco, is coming down just a little bit. But Magnussen, great start. Like I said, Stroll, great start. Crashes here that we had, turn 1, Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda. I don't think there was a penalty. I'm almost positive that they just said they let it go. Just kind of racing incident. Going into the chicane, it looked like Esteban was pretty close. Yuki crowded him. It just kind of looked 50-50 to me. It's something that you hate to see for Ocon in his home race. But actually, Yuki Tsunoda was the one to get the worst of it and spin out in that corner. Just kind of, again, putting AlphaTauri behind the 8 ball. Not a bad start. Like the day might have some promise, and then he gets taken out. So that was kind of our first incident of the race. And then we're going on, and then we have the infamous Charles Leclerc crashing from the lead. Oh my God, like I showed the pictures earlier, just heartbreak for Ferrari. So I want to talk about the situation with no definitive answer, because I don't think there is a definitive answer in this situation. So I have some data here. I have videos. We're gonna take a look at kind of all of them and see what happened. But the situation is that I believe Verstappen pits on lap 16 or 17. He is about little over 1 second behind Leclerc. Tried to pass Leclerc early on. Great racing, very respectful. Can't get it done. I think the tires overheated. So Red Bull said they want to basically attempt the undercut. So they're going to pit first. Hope that with the fresh tires they can close that second gap, so that when Leclerc pits, he would come out behind Verstappen. So lap 17 or 18. Lap 16 or 17, Verstappen pits. So now, some data that I have here that I will show you guys right now. So I don't know how well you guys can see this on your screen. I'm going to blow it up the best that I can. Um, so no, so it's a little fuzzy right now. I'm hoping it clears up once it gets some good internet connection. Or not. I'll just have a bad video. I'll talk about what's going on. So Verstappen pits, comes out behind Norris. He's about 28 seconds behind. At this point, lap 18, there it goes, clears up. He's 27.75 seconds behind. So if you watched the race, you saw them. They were toting around. That 27 seconds was the average pit stop loss. They told Verstappen on the radio to get on it, that he was not in Leclerc's window perfectly. They would like him in it a little bit more. Verstappen goes into turn 11 and loses the car, or excuse me, Leclerc goes into turn 11 and loses the car. Some people say they don't understand why he lost it, because he was just maintaining at that point. I might think that he was pushing a little bit to make sure Verstappen wasn't in his undercut region. Also, some are saying that because Leclerc didn't pit the immediate lap after Verstappen came in, so usually if you have enough lead, the guy behind you pits, and you pit, and you just do what you call, you just cover him off. So Ferrari didn't bring Leclerc in immediately, just like they didn't do at Australia. They left Austria. They left Leclerc out. So some are saying that they were going to be leaving Leclerc out, maybe, so he'll be on a whole different race strategy. I believe he was trying to push because he wanted to keep Verstappen outside of his pit window, that 27 seconds. So the accident just happened. So before it happens, Verstappen's 26.7. Okay, so he's inside that 27-second pit stop. So that's not a comfortable gap. So I believe that he was pushing hard for that reason. This gentleman here, YouTube channel, I want to make sure I give him credit. Marcel Fisher has a great video, an absolutely phenomenal video here that I want to watch with you guys. Kind of going over, like, this is a great detail. So he's using the Ballard here, 100 meters as kind of a marking. So he's trying to show you what's going on. On the right is lap 18, okay? So this was his crash lap. He's going 2 kilometers per hour faster. He also, as you can see in this still, all right, this is what it's saying, that he's still on the gas deeper into the corner, all right? And then as you can see, he's about, what is that? He's about 6 kilometers faster, all right? Stays on the throttle longer and carries more speed into the entry of the corner. We'll roll through this here. Good. He brakes also a little bit later, all right? And is 20 kilometers per hour faster now, all right? At the first apex. So turn 11 is actually like a very unique kind of big sweeping corner. You hit multiple apexes. It's very, very cool corner. But as you guys can see, 20 kilometers per hour faster on in that apex. So great video here that will continue in a second when he goes to the next slide. He also did a purple mini sector. So there's 3 big sectors and then there's mini sectors. Purple mini sector means that he did the fastest sector of the race. And it is showing that he did basically a purple mini sector, and saying that the entry of turn 11 was much faster. So just as this, wonderful thing says, that he was pushing hard. So next slide here, lap 17, he releases the brakes at 183. Okay, so kind of a long time before. Go through the slide again. He's still faster, so he's carrying more speed. So what happens is you carry more speed, you have to get on the brakes harder. Okay, then he just rolls the car until it's slowed down to 166. This was not the crash lap, the lap before he applies the throttle again. And you can see where he is, kind of the way he's arcing that corner. This corner, he doesn't have that same arc into the corner, going much faster. And then he tried to stay into the brake much longer. All right, so he would get the oversteer just now at this moment. So what happens is, press on the brake, okay? If you've ever been in a car, all the weight goes forward. So it softens up, lightens up the rear end of the car. And what happens is that these guys have so much horsepower that a little throttle touch, and as you can see on the right side of the screen, he's applying more throttle here. So, but the brakes also applied more. So there's much more weight on the front end of the car, not on the rear where the power is. So when you get on the gas pedal, that wheel starts spinning and goes off the track. So that was a great video with the side-by-side stills from lap 16 to lap 18. So Marcel Fisher, great video, absolutely phenomenal there. So great video detailing kind of, why or what happened. And that's it for Ferrari. You got to give it up to Charles Leclerc, though. Post-race interview, he takes full responsibility. He says this is his year to win the Drivers' Championship, possibly, but if he keeps driving like this, he totally knows why he's not. You can't be making these mistakes. Max Verstappen's not making these mistakes. He knows that, and he really took it like a man. I like Charles Leclerc. I think he holds his head high in the situation, and he showed pretty great character for that Ferrari team. Immediately though, if you're watching the race, if you just kind of tuned in, he complained about the throttle, which in my mind, and a lot of people did jump back to last week in Austria when he couldn't release the throttle all the way. It was staying at 25%, but 99.9% positive when he was complaining about the throttle this weekend. So he was in the wall, it was that he couldn't get out. He couldn't reverse it because he was trying to still continue on with that race. I thought the car might be okay. I know it hit pretty hard. He hit it pretty square on. And obviously that messed up the throttle system. I thought he might be able to, if he could reverse and get out of there, throw a new wing on it, and show some speed, but that was the end of that. So the throttle actually wasn't the cause of it. He's saying that he was the cause of it, driver error, but not the throttle. Also, though, a lot of people, same thing with the brakes putting weight on the front of the car. A good wind gust from the back of the car can lift up the rear end and lose it, and it was kind of windy that weekend, is what a lot of people are saying. But I mean, again, he gets out of the car, he takes it on the chin. It's big for the points, it's big for the team. As you see, Red Bull has a double points finish and Ferrari does not. Meanwhile, while this is going on though, Carlos Sainz starting dead last, starting to make his way through the field. It's basically blowing through everyone through the back like they're nothing. It's kind of like a good precursor to what happened at the end of the race. Something else I want to mention is that Magnussen had a very good start in the race, picked up positions. Then I actually liked this move by Haas. I thought I did, but it didn't play out too well because of Charles Leclerc crash. Magnussen pits before the caution when he's in a DRS train. So he comes in, he gets hards. Thought process is he'll come out, he'll be faster than the guys in front, and when they pit, he'll essentially undercut them. Unfortunately, the caution just threw a wrench into that. Caution, cars are slowed down, you get a cheap pit stop. Everyone came in, and it kind of threw that strategy right out the window. But I thought I liked it. Why stay in a DRS train? There was that for most of the race for a lot of people. Why stay in a DRS train and just beat up your equipment, beat up your cars? Especially them, a couple points finishes last week. They're feeling good. You got to take a risky move. They pit their guy early. It didn't work out. But I was hoping it would, but it didn't work out for him. Most of the race was kind of pretty just consistent. I get why people think it was boring. There wasn't too much passing. A lot of emphasis on Hamilton keeping Perez behind. George Russell got off to 5th. Alonso was in 4th. Yes, Alonso was in 4th. George Russell passed him, so he stayed behind Sergio Perez for most of the race. And again, like Fernando Alonso, the consistency that he is putting out this year is amazing. I really think when you start to look at the tier of the teams, Red Bull, Ferrari are in a class of their own. Mercedes might be edging up. In the midfield battle, which looked tight, is, I think, really starting to define itself. Beginning of the year, Alfa Romeo, you were like, oh my gosh, where's the speed coming from with Bottas? Lately, him, Joe, not looking great. But Alpine's running consistent, Ocon and Fernando. And then I think McLaren is starting to make some jumps up as well. I think, Ricciardo and Norris ran between that 6 and 8 range for most of the race. And I'm almost positive if they had a double points finish, we'll go over that as well. But Fernando, super consistent. Wily old vet that he is, he's just running real good. Again, I kind of, talked about him a lot last week. Alex Albon, there's only so much I feel like you could get out of that Williams car, but he's keeping it around top 10, 13, strong runs. He's not looking like a bum in that car. That's for sure. You know, I don't think there's a place up for him to go. As kind of the seats are all locked in for last year. There's not a better team that's looking for a driver and I think would call on him. So he's kind of stuck where he's at. But I believe that he's running very consistent. One of the things I talk about that makes this race boring is pit stop strategies. So the caution came out, everyone came in and pitted. Everyone started on the hard medium and transitioned to the hard tire. Formula One, you have to run 2 sets of compounds. So medium, hard. Most of the people were done pitting for the race. I believe that France had the longest pit out of any track so far this season, if not the longest of the season. So what happens is 27-second pit loss. It really it deters team from wanting to try like a 2-stop because they're going to lose so much track time that they probably won't have enough track time. They won't enough laps to make it back. So 1-stop race made it real boring because kind of after the caution, it kind of it was what it was. It was really single file. After the caution, Verstappen's first, Hamilton second, Perez is third. You think, you were hoping maybe Hamilton could hang on after 2 laps. You saw he was out of the DRS zone. But he kept out of Perez's DRS zone and kept a healthy gap pretty much through the end of the race. But, no one could try that 2-stop strategy. There's just, it's too long of a pit lane, and you just can't do it. Driver of the day, Carlos Sainz. An amazing run. Absolutely stunning. I really thought early season form he was nowhere near Charles Leclerc. Crashes in Australia. Just didn't look like, Leclerc puts it on the multiple poles in the early season. Absolutely looking disgusting. Carlos Sainz wasn't looking great. This week starts last. That Ferrari in himself was phenomenal. So he starts on the hard tire opposite to most because starting from the back, kind of strategy, start on a harder tire, see if you can go longer to make up race time with hopefully maybe less pit stops. It's a strategy. Caution comes out lap 18 for Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz comes in to get the mediums. Now, typical Ferrari fashion, I haven't confirmed the details, but slow pit stop. I believe maybe the left rear was hung up. The rear jack guy had the rear end still up in the air for a long time. Hold up for a long stop. And if that's not bad enough, they release him right in front of Alex Albon. Clear-cut penalty, 5-second penalty. So, a normal pit stop, he doesn't, probably come out unsafe release in front of Albon. He probably has plenty of time. Worst case scenario is you let Albon by, you come back out onto the track. I think he came out onto the track in the top 10. If I could cycle through here with you guys real quick, because I know he was up front here. Everyone's pitting. Yeah, I believe he comes out 9th, or excuse me, 10th. With the field bunched together. So, comes out 10th with the field bunched together. You're like, okay, he has a chance. He's not miles behind anymore. And actually, I see some more cars pitting. So, yes. Okay, there we go. So, he comes out 8th. Excuse me. He comes out 8th. Bunched up. And honestly, I got nervous as a Mercedes fan. I said, I think Carlos Sainz is going to run up on these guys with the type of car that he's had. And sure enough, he did. Absolutely amazing. But he does get the 5-second penalty. So you watch the race. He gets past Ricciardo, Norris, Alonso. Takes him a few laps. Gets past Russell. He's on the medium tires. No one thinks that the medium tires can make it to the end of the race. As the laps wind down, you're waiting for those medium tires to fall off. They never do. He continues to stay fast. Gets Russell. Pretty straightforward move. If you watch the race, an amazing battle with Sergio Perez. Absolutely insane. Puts it on the outside in some corners that you would not think that you would. Kind of some moves that only that Ferrari would be making this weekend. So gets past Perez, At this point of the race, he gets past Perez. He's got a 5-second penalty. So if he would pit, 5 seconds, can't touch the car, then they can change the tires and go out. If you don't pit at all, you just add 5 seconds to the end of your race time. So he passes Russell, passes Perez. Definitely thought that he should have stayed out. And what he ends up doing is he ends up passing Perez. Few laps left. The Ferrari team's trying to call him in as he's passing Perez. Absolutely kind of Ferrari crapshoot that it always is when it comes to the strategy, unfortunately. He gets past Perez. So now, at minimum, at bare minimum, is which he ends up, he's going to finish fifth. I believe that he could have built the gap on George Russell and maybe finished fourth. And as the race went on, Russell and Perez ended up getting into it, which that causes a loss of time when those guys are racing each other. He might even be able to gain more time and at least maybe gotten fourth over either one of them, or third. I think it would have been a lot for him to catch Hamilton. I believe there was, under 20 laps left, closer to 15 once he passed Perez. I don't think he would have been able to caught Lewis and pass him, but if he did pass him, I think there's almost absolutely no way he would have built a 5-second gap on Lewis to get second place. But I think you're looking at a solid fourth place finish, even possibly if things went in your favor, a third place finish. But they pit Carlos Sainz. And like we just talked about multiple times, the pit loss time was so much that he comes out and I believe 7th or 8th, has to pass, still works his way back up to 5th, which is amazing. But you're a Ferrari fan, I'd be surprised if you didn't throw your remote through the wall while you're watching the race. Commentators didn't understand why you would pit him and not leave him out. Nico Rosberg, who's hopping in on commentary, didn't understand why you would, bring him in the pits and not leave him out. No, it made no sense to no one. Especially too, so many laps into the stint, you expect those mediums to come off, and he's legit driving around Sergio Perez on hards. That they both came in pitted at the same time. The Ferrari was just looking so fast. Now, Ferrari's thing was that they were doing the data, and they didn't think that the tire would last the whole race, so they were trying to play the safe side. You can understand it, but it just feels like, it's one thing when your lead driver wrecks out, leading the race on his own. Then you have this strategy pit call that's, debated. It just does not look good for a Ferrari team. It looks like there's no control over there. No one's being held accountable for their results, basically. Especially when you have cars this fast. And they've had this problem with Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. Back to 2018, they had a fast car. Those guys were getting into it each other. They're blowing leads. Sebastian Vettel's wrecking for the lead. I think when you look back, you look at champions, you don't see Lewis Hamilton wrecking from the lead too often. You don't look at, Max Verstappen the last couple of years. He's not dropping the ball at all, ever. But Ferrari just seems to be messing it up over and over again. But Sergio Perez, an amazing race from the front to the back. You got to give it to him. Ferrari's car looked really good. It really makes you feel like if Leclerc could have stayed out, they might have won. You never know. Verstappen was close. And then, if there wasn't an engine penalty and Sainz was up front, the whole thing could have been different. But that's what you love about Formula One. You never know really how it's going to go. So many different things to get thrown at you. So I got the results for the weekend. Max Verstappen first, Lewis second, George third, Sergio fourth, Carlos Sainz in that 5th place. Again, Fernando bringing it home 6th. I don't have his last couple race results like I should, but I'm going to assume that they've been all pretty much top 10s. He's been bringing home points, or he's holding down consistently every week. Like I said, really, top 3 teams are what they are, but I think they're really making Alpine look like the number 4 team on the grid. McLaren with those upgrades 7th, Esteban 8th. The Frenchman home race brings you home 8th. Double points for Alpine. Fan favorite Daniel Ricciardo 9th place for McLaren. That's a double points for them too. Lance Stroll in 10th. And if you saw the last lap battle between Vettel and Lance Stroll, it was very tight. Stroll's tires went off. Basically the last corner, Vettel kind of sent it in there. Stroll kind of checked up to make sure he didn't have any wheel spin and a nice straight exit. And Vettel was kind of trying to run wide and get a run out of the corner. Almost got into the back of him. Not a real issue. But it would have been cool to see Sebastian. Everyone loves Seb, to see him in the points. That's your top 10. Sebastian 11th, Pierre 12th. Like I said, it's a heartbreak. They were showing his parents being excited passing for like 12th over like Latifi and Magnussen, which is just where Pierre was last year. Was it felt like he was qualifying 6th, right where he should be, if not exceeding expectations and bringing the car home. And this AlphaTauri this year, not great. You got Albon, big fan, 13th. Bottas, 14th, struggle fest. Mick Schumacher, 15th. Joe Guanyu, 16th. So they got into it. I think, they were racing hard. Joe clearly is kind of at fault because he loses the car and gets into Mick. One of our crashes for the day. You get Latifi retired. Kevin Magnussen retired. They got into it together. Looked like Latifi kind of threw it in there. Again, racing incident. I like to let the drivers drive. But did kind of look like K-Mag was pushed up onto the curb. And I'm seeing week after week, when these guys are getting pushed to the curb, they obviously don't have the grip. They're bouncing off the curb, coming out and causing contact. It's usually the guy, saying he should have maybe backed off. But it's just seeing week after week when you put someone on the curb that they're going to come off, trying to grab traction on the curb is hard. It's different than surface and the asphalt. It's not as slick, so you don't get the proper traction. So the car sliding messes up the front end, but they got into it. Charles Leclerc, obviously, DNF, and then Yuki Tsunoda just had some damage. I was getting worse and worse after that first lap incident with Ocon. So, pretty good race. The only thing that we didn't talk about was Russell and Perez. So if you've seen, I don't have it brought up, but basically George Russell lunged it down the inside pretty hard. He thinks that his right front tire was at Sergio Perez's left rear. That gives him the corner by the letter of the law. I think he said it about 42 times after the race. I thought he kind of, I'm a Mercedes guy myself, but I thought he lunged it in there kind of hard. Sergio had absolutely nowhere to go. I think Russell actually made contact that sent Sergio kind of, off, through the chicane. So George was very adamant that it wasn't his fault. I think it was a deep lunge that didn't work out well. But safety car, virtual safety car, which means they all held to a certain delta, so a certain speed essentially. They have to stay within a certain window, and these guys all try to time it so that when they're pushing, they have momentum on the car when the virtual safety car ends, so they get a run at the car in front of them. And if you watch the race, George absolutely caught Checo snoozing. Oh my gosh, comments on Instagram that Checo is still sleeping right now. Absolutely hilarious. But that is what caused them Mercedes double podium finish. Was George's kind of cool move on Sergio. And then Sergio was right there at the last lap. The way Sergio races sometimes is, I don't know where he pulls it out. You think he's kind of locked into a spot and he finds a different gear, a different mentality. He made the last couple laps very exciting and definitely made George Russell earn that. So Verstappen won, double podium, the first one for Lewis and George together and of the season. So they're starting to pick up some pace. They're getting a little bit closer. Have some point standings here for you guys looking at this. Get my big face out of the way. Red Bull first, 396. You got Ferrari second, 314. Again, you get a DNF from Leclerc and a 5th place finish from Sainz. Mercedes, 270. You have a 2nd and 3rd place finish from them. They're keeping themselves in it, no doubt. Like I said, Alpine consistency lately. They got 93. McLaren's 89. That's kind of their own battle, I think, for 4th and 5th. I think that's what you'll see for most of the year. And then the back, it's just Haas's double points finishes help them, but they haven't proven to me that they're going to be there week in, week out. You're kind of looking at Red Bull 396, Ferrari 314, and then Mercedes 270. That's a 44-point gap to Ferrari. That'll be a little bit hard to close, but still, I believe we're on race 13 of the year. This was 12, and Hungary's 13. So a lot of more races. That's not a word. A lot more races to go this year. So definitely time to turn it around. That's pretty much all I got with my notes. We're going to talk about some more stuff. You guys got any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, let me know. But it's one of my favorite things and the worst things, because next race is Sunday, Hungary. I love a back-to-back race weekends, but then there's our big summer break with a month off. So Hungary this weekend. Last year, if you watched the race, was the crazy one where they had rain after I forget was it rain after a red flag. I know that Lewis Hamilton was sitting on the grid all by himself with intermediate tires, where everyone else came to get on slicks. He had to drive his way back. Fernando Alonso defends him very hard for third place, because if he didn't, he probably would have won the race. Esteban Ocon wins. I believe Sebastian gets second and then gets DQ'd, or gets third and gets DQ'd. A little hazy on the details last year, but it proved to be a good race. That was also the year Valtteri Bottas, because the race started off in the wet, that he went bowling and pretty much took out Verstappen and Sergio, and it was a little bit of a mess. But Hungary provides some good races. It's a strong racetrack for Lewis. Him and Verstappen don't have weaknesses at any tracks, in my opinion. So they're going to be good. And then you add this new fast Ferrari. I think next Sunday the race is going to be very well. Definitely, if not for next Sunday, after the break, as far as the show goes, I definitely want to get call-ins, so I can probably just get a phone call from my dad or anyone else who wants to call in and talk about a topic. So I will do the details of I'll look into the details of getting that online, and graphics, because some of this stuff is pretty bougie and I'm doing it myself. So we're going to look at that before, or at least after the race next weekend and before summer break we get back. This weird little segment. So, see, these are awful graphics that I made. It's just pretty bad. But at the end, I like to talk about all things racing. If you guys got anything you want to talk about, let me know. NASCAR this weekend, they were at Pocono. It was a pretty solid race. I don't want to say it was, the edge of your seat, or last year, Larson leading and blowing a tire in 3 and 4. But the big news coming from NASCAR, Denny Hamlin wins. He's tied with Jeff Gordon for 6. It looks like he gets win number 7 to separate himself. Kyle Busch finishes 2nd, and then Chase Elliott finishes 3rd. But afterwards, and the details are a little hazy to me because I've heard different things, but Denny Hamlin and and Kyle Busch from Joe Gibbs Racing, to first and second, get disqualified. I believe there hasn't been a disqualification from the winner since the 1960s, so this is kind of a big deal. Apparently, post-race, they do a different inspection than pre-race. Apparently, post-race, if you didn't know, a NASCAR car is wrapped, so it's not painted. They do a wrap job on it, and so after the race, they peel off the wrapping, so it just shows like the bare fender of the car. And I believe they had some. I was told they had just some little tape on there that maybe affected things. Something that you couldn't catch pre-race because they're not going to tear apart the wrapping before the race. Something that they could only catch afterwards. But a disqualification from them too is big. Puts Denny back tied for with Jeff Gordon for 6 races, 1 at Pocono. So he doesn't get that win number 7 to separate himself. They lose stage race points, so it's a pretty big deal. And then Chase Elliott picks up the win. They sound that siren from his hometown probably a little later than they would have expected. But that's a pretty big deal. And then you guys know we're big World of Outlaw fans here. We love dirt racing. We had a good week. I talk about Ferrari. They race Formula One, where they race 23 times a year. If you're a true fan of racing and you need to get your racing fix in every week, World of Outlaws, they race, I think, close to 89 races a year. You get Wednesday night races sometimes. You're looking at Thursday, Friday shows, Friday, Saturday shows, Saturday, Sunday shows. I'll be going to the World of Outlaws show at Weedsport this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Very excited about that. but you're just so much racing. If you love it, it's awesome. If you're a racer working in the shop midweek, you know what that's like. You're putting in those long hours. You got the television, you throw on Dirt Vision, and you have yourself entertainment racing during the week. So they were in Pennsylvania this week, Port Rose Speedway on Wednesday. NASCAR Cup champion Kyle Larson won. He also has some ridiculous stats there. I think they will rename it Kyle Larson Speedway soon. He's won there in sprint cars. He's won there, I believe, in a late model. Like his first time there, I think he won. Not first time there, first time in a late model. He won there, so he's absolutely crushing it. Which it's just how do you not? Kyle Larson, he wins Wednesday night, and then I believe he raced Friday and Saturday at Williams Grove, which is what we're about to talk about. They're in Pocono, so I think he qualified and then went back. He's just a racer. He's in the car. He's anything he wins. It's awesome. Friday night, World of Outlaws. Lance Deweese wins. He's the winningest driver at Williams Grove. I believe over 100 wins there. So that he won Friday night. And then Saturday night, Brad Sweet. He is your reigning champion for the World of Outlaws. I believe he's been racing there like 13 years and hasn't won a race. If that's that, I know it's been a while, but he hasn't won at Williams Grove. So he was able to pull that off. That was a really good race. One of the Pennsylvania posse started catching him at the end, Danny Dietrich. I thought he might have a chance. Last lap, he hooks the bottom in 1 and 2, but unfortunately, so does the lap car. Dirty Air, he's got nowhere to go. Sweet pounds the top, and just has such a gap going into 3 and 4. So Danny Dietrich almost made that race really interesting and almost gave the posse a sweep, but World of Outlaws guy, Brad Sweet, brings it home. Also, good fight Friday night between Danny Dietrich and Freddie Raymer. I thought Dietrich just overdrove the corner maybe a little bit, but he, in his post-race interview, made it very clear he was sick and tired of getting chopped. Rex Raymer flips. Dietrich says that he flipped on his own by trying to stand on the loud pedal. Caught him to catch the dirt and flip. But Raymer almost caught Dietrich at the end of Saturday night's feature. They were a couple spots apart, but I think it was, it might be a couple spots, but on the track in the race, you thought, oh my gosh, he might catch him. We could have something good happen here. So that was Saturday night, World of Outlaws. Like I said, I'm very excited. We're a fan here, David Gravel. That is our sprint car driver. Family friend for a long time. So we're really excited to go, myself and my dad going up to Weedsport this week to watch racing Saturday and Sunday. A little trip, Connecticut to New York, and then we're going to bring it back home. Show next Tuesday, 5:30 as well, because there will be a race on Sunday. There's no chance that we'll be missing that. 2 shows in. I'm loving it. I know the race recap's kind of tough. I don't know how much video I could show, so it makes me nervous. I would prepare. I don't want to say I'm a lack of preparedness, but I just nervousness that I might get DMCA'd for showing too many clips from this feed. So I'm going to kind of look into it. Race recap, I think, with some more videos and more specific, kind of showing you guys while I'm talking some of the moves. Might grasp that. There could be taking the show to maybe Spotify soon. It might be hard with videos and stuff. So show's a work in progress. I appreciate everyone who's watching. I gotta say the most corny thing ever: like, subscribe. It'll mean a lot to me. And then comments afterwards. Like, make sure you guys like, subscribe. But also if you dislike it. I'll take the dislike. Criticism. Just maybe some nice criticism. Tell me what you guys would like to see me improve on. But this is a great second show, guys. Again, French Grand Prix, maybe not one of the most exciting if you're not like a true fan, but if you knew what was going on, you're watching the Perez battle, Russell battle, you're seeing sights come through the field. Pit strategy kind of was what it was, but wasn't a bad weekend. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a great week. Said Tuesday,